I'm Danielle Bethell, Danielle, Marion County Commissioner.
Okay. And obviously, this situation, I mean, the particular restrictions, the lawsuit's been going on for decades, but the particular restrictions have been going on for a year now. We've seen a few different press releases from the county kind of upset about the various restrictions that this court order has put into place. Why is, this latest one, or is it more impactful than the other ones?
Well, because now we don't have any recourse at the local level when somebody commits a crime in any of our communities in Oregon, when it's either a Measure 11 crime and they have determined that they can't aid and assist and need to get restoration, they can go to the state hospital. Well, now the judge has reduced the amount of time an individual can go in for restoration, which is treatment that helps them restore so they can be held accountable in the justice system. But there's a myriad of other crimes that really impact everyday Oregonians on a much larger basis. There's several misdemeanor crimes like property damage, identity theft, assault, certain burglaries, aggravated harassment, disorderly conduct. That are now not even permittable to go into the state hospital. So if an individual in your community comes in and robs your house, and then they go get arrested and go to jail, and the judge determines, and a defense attorney and a DA say, hey, they need to get some treatment so that way they can make sure that they have the full justice system accountable and that they're also being held accountable. We cannot send them to the state hospital for that restoration treatment. And that means that people will not be held accountable because what happens in those cases is defense attorneys essentially will move to dismiss the case. Then we have victims that don't get any help, and we have individuals who don't have any accountability. And we've already seen the havoc that's been wreaked across all of our communities, especially in Salem, by particular individuals who have severe and chronic mental illness, kind of go through that revolving door in the state hospital and then not receive that treatment, and have victims in our community like a business owner in downtown Salem, Chronic Tacos, who was a chronic victim of one individual. We wouldn't even be able to send her to the state hospital at this point for treatment.
Why would she not qualify for community-based mental health treatment?
Well, this individual that I'm talking about, her acuity is extremely high. She doesn't have the tools available to be able to navigate, even with basic supported services in the community for like a community restoration model, because her mental illness is so severe. Her issue is that when she gets arrested, she goes into the jail. And then, of course, the state hospital, as you know, over the last several years, has not brought those patients in soon enough. So she fails out faster because she's in a jail setting. And then when they do get her into treatment, they don't do the proper procedure of getting her an evaluation timely and getting her restored. In fact, I don't believe she's capable of being restored. Judge Bennett also doesn't believe that as an individual in this community. And she has been somebody who's caused serious harm to businesses and individuals for far too long in Marion County.
There are other avenues to force mental health treatment on individuals who do not want it, and the state lawmakers have made it easier to do so. Is the
Have they?
county, well, I mean, they have lowered the bar for civil commitment. Has this person qualified for that? Is the county pursuing or pushing more civil commitments? When we look at the numbers overall statewide, at least the preliminary data shows that counties are not pushing forward more civil commitment cases.
Just because the bill to lower the bar passed during the 2025 session doesn't mean access has been granted. There are several mechanisms within the behavioral health system that have to be triggered before civil commitment can be pursued. And we don't have the proper path because of the resistance by the state. One of the biggest challenges that we have in Oregon is the transportation modality. Even if you had a two-party petition, let's say that this woman I'm talking about has a loved one that believes that she needs to be committed, and she gets a behavioral health expert to agree. They go to a judge and the judge agrees. There's nobody to transport her even upon that order because law enforcement cannot transport because of the use of force cases across the country over the last several years. And there's literally no system provider in behavioral health in Oregon that can do that transport against someone's will. I have tried with State Representative Tom Anderson for 3 sessions to try to fix that loophole in the law and basically fix it to no avail. We've had lots of conversations with community organizations like Disability Rights Oregon and the trial lawyers with no success. We do have a work group that Tom Anderson, the state rep, is going to be hosting for this next 2027 legislative cycle. But right now, we don't have all the tools. It's not an easy, straightforward path. Not that I think it should be easy, but I do think that we should be able to pull some triggers to help the individual I spoke of and many others across Oregon.
So, I mean, let's go back to this transportation issue. Is it not just the case that officers will put somebody on a peace hold and transport them? I thought that was the law.
Only if they're a danger to themselves or other, and they're being able to perform that in this instance that the officer is present. There's a young woman that lives in South Salem that Salem PD has responded to her home multiple times for destruction and threats. She's even harmed her mom and was put on a 370 hold and was committed to the Salem Hospital Psychiatric Unit for 28 days. The issue is law enforcement has to be present to see that in order to transport it. The civil commitment process you're speaking of, which is more the two-party petition, has nothing to do with law enforcement. So unless you're in the act at the time that law enforcement is seeing the danger to self or others to do that transport, they're only doing a transport to an emergency room per se. They're not transporting to the state hospital. And then where do we hold them? If they haven't committed a crime, there's nowhere really outside of an emergency room situation to hold somebody for a proper evaluation. And another day, we could probably get into the lack of staffing statewide for the type of evaluators that we need.
So I mean, but the things that you're talking about are resources at a county level, right? That there's not enough staffing. There's not, I mean, I guess with the police officer hold, are you talking about less restrictions for when police officers can put somebody on a peace officer hold or
It's not necessarily about restrictions for officers being able to put somebody on a peace officer's hold. It's about them being able to be present in the situation. There is plenty of police officers to be able to respond to a 911 call. But other issues, we should engage in the prevention side of behavioral health more than the reactive side. I don't believe that law enforcement's the proper tool and the lever that we should always be pulling to help somebody who's in a mental health crisis. Right now, the Behavioral Health Crisis Center has to jump through multiple hoops to do a civil commitment. And then if they get awarded by the court, like I said, the transportation component is difficult because there's no system to do that transportation to the state hospital. We don't have vans with people driving around with white coats to pick people up and take them. We don't have proper policy in this state to understand how the system works and then design it so it does effectively work.
so you're saying there's a couple gaps once that person does get civilly committed,
Yeah,
if they are committed by their family and not by police.
especially if they disagree with that commitment. And more often
Um,
than not, they do.
all right, we're back up. I'm going to
Sorry.
rephrase. No, you're all good. I'm going to rephrase that question. Disability Rights Oregon is saying, the state hospital is full. Would you rather have people who are awaiting a murder trial that are aid and assist get restored to continue that murder trial? And, the victims and witnesses involved in that, or would you rather, keep these people who are lower level crimes um, as aid and assist?
Well, as a policymaker, I don't believe it has to be either or. I believe that the governor and the legislature need to take action and adequately staff the beds that we have at the Oregon State Hospital and then staff up to capacity to the needs of our community. We've not had a proper partnership between the state and the county in the 6 years plus longer that I am aware of that looks at the greater effect of having an either or system. Disability Rights Oregon is taking a position on what's available to them right now because they're not decision makers. They're not investors in policy or in healthcare systems. They're just advocates. But the governor herself should take this as a policy priority and do a proper evaluation of the needs that we have statewide and then make that investment. We're not seeing that at all. We're not even having conversations because she's being predominantly reactive to the court. And as we've seen in the court order and lots of conversation, the court order even goes against the things that the legislature said recently, which is we need to make sure that we get people in there timely and get them supports and restored. But it kind of seems like an oxymoron when they're not providing additional funding for the hospital to staff up in order to provide that service.
Another thing, and I think we touched on this slightly, is that obviously Disability Rights Oregon is saying, hey, if we put pressure on this end, then the county support system and mental health and the community mental health infrastructure will have to grow. Um, what is you're talking about resources for the state hospital, but what about the lacking resources, obviously, at the county level too?
Well, the legislature needs to prioritize that. At the end of the day, the Oregon Health Authority, via the Oregon legislature, sends money to counties to do behavioral health. We don't use local resources to do that because we predominantly have to fund public safety systems with local property taxes. The income tax dollars that the state collects is the priority funding mechanism that they need to invest into behavioral health, and they've chosen not to do that adequately. Every single county has waited on the sidelines for a proper conversation with the governor and her team to tell them exactly what we need to be successful. We've even floated ideas about expanding community restoration. Marion County is successful in bringing on certain types of secure residential treatment facilities in partnership with third-party providers and the Oregon Health Authority. But it takes so long to build those systems up that we see this a balloon effect essentially, and I think that that balloon is about ready to rupture because we don't have places to put people. But it comes down to the prioritization of the income tax dollars that the legislature has to disperse into behavioral health, and they are choosing not to prioritize this system of care.
I mean, it kind of sounds like that's a point in common then with what they're saying and what you're saying is that yes, we do also need that community mental health resource. With limited funds, why invest that money in expanding state hospital when you could invest it in community health, or are you advocating for that?
I'm advocating for both. I believe right now you have to be reactive to the larger need, which is getting people into beds in secure places and then scale up the community systems. You can walk and chew gum at the same time in policy spaces, and we don't even see that happening. The governor herself said it's going to take somewhere between 10 and 15 years to bring on the behavioral health community beds that she hopes to see. I've never seen a plan. I don't know what that plan even looks like, but she's talked about it. I'd be happy to sit down at a table with her and Disability Rights Oregon and talk about what community care looks like and what the cost is, but also what is the relief valve for counties when we have somebody who reaches the acuity of care that needs more concentrated inpatient treatment that the state hospital should be providing. Right now, we have all kinds of issues because Oregon Health Authority takes too long to certify buildings or get licenses to providers to come online. That's a policy issue that the governor needs to address. I do agree with Disability Rights Oregon in the fact that we do need to have more community-based healthcare in the behavioral health space, but that has to be funded. And the governor is not prioritizing those conversations.